All right, y'all, it's about that time. Jeff Johnson got 3 things you need to know, man. Jeff, good morning, man. Happy to have you.
Prior to the weekend, on Friday, I don't think anybody was expecting to hear news that Kamala Harris might win Iowa. And it kind of shifted a focus. And then when you start looking at some of the polling that most recently came out, you're seeing that there was a New York Times Siena College poll that it was asked if the 2024 presidential election were held today, who would you vote for if the candidates were Kamala Harris and Donald Trump? And you're seeing in Nevada 49% for Kamala Harris, 48% in North Carolina, 49% in Wisconsin, 48% in Georgia, 48 and 48 in Pennsylvania, 47 and 47 in Michigan, and 45-49 for Trump in Arizona. You're talking about deadly contested, less than 2 to 3 points in each state. And what that means, man, is every single vote counts. I've seen people who have seen polls and it shifted their motivation one way or the other. None of these polls are saying anything that other than we all got to turn out. And so there's still an opportunity for this election to go one way or the other. And I think, Kay, you've said over and over again, you want to make sure there's a landslide if it's possible, because the closer it is, the more that they have got an opportunity. And by that, I mean the Republicans to call to question the election.
Because they're going to do that anyway.
Listen, I have heard that at 11 o'clock p.m. on election night, no matter what, Trump is going to claim he won.
Yep.
No matter what.
It's going to automatically create chaos and confusion.
Yeah.
Because people don't pay attention. People only read the headlines. And it's going to be a chaotic situation, which is what they want, because in chaos, you can start to pull shenanigans.
Yeah. And I hope, listen, I need you all to understand, anybody who's listening, the likelihood that there is a pronounced winner on Tuesday night is slim to none. And that does not mean something is going wrong. It just will mean that responsible individuals on either side of the aisle that are counting the votes haven't gotten to a place where they can certify the election in their state. That is not unusual. And so I don't want people to think that if there is, especially those who are voting for the first time, if there is not a winner announced on Tuesday night, that does not mean something's wrong. That actually means that states are taking their time to certify their election, certify votes the right way, especially if it is incredibly close. And so they will, and by they I mean primarily right-wing folks, will try to convince you that something is wrong or that the election is being stolen if, in fact, there is not an announcement on Tuesday night. And there couldn't be anything further than the truth. Okay, you and I have talked about this a lot. In the event that there is something wrong, there are 2 things that can happen. One, you're going to see states through their legislatures attempt to potentially get in the way, or you're going to see cases filed that ultimately go to the Supreme Court. And so just as we go through this, we're going to talk a lot about the process, because I want people to understand that as flawed as our democracy is, there is a process in place to deal with all of these things that are getting ready to happen. And some of that is constitutionally driven, and some of it, when you see it happen, is actually in opposition of the Constitution, and we need to know what the difference is. But the best thing we can do is turn out in droves so that there is no question. The larger the turnout is and the greater differential you're able to create between candidates, the less room there is for shenanigans, no matter what.
Wow. Jeff, man, thank you so much for coming on. If anybody have any questions about anything or have any issues at the poll, can you let them know? Is there a number? Or
there's several. There's several. And so in between now and Election Day, please go to votetolive.org, because you can still get your ballot. You can get resources for rides to the polls. But there also is the reality, y'all, of voter tampering or voter fraud. If you go to the polls and you are not they tell you something is wrong with your voter registration, ask for a provisional ballot. No matter what. If somebody tries to tell you you can't vote, ask for a provisional ballot. What that means is you can vote, and they will hold that. They will not count that vote until they certify your registration. But you have the ability to ask for a provisional ballot. That way you can cast your vote and they can't send you away without casting your vote. There's election protection issues where if they don't give you a provisional ballot or they turn you away from the polls, then you got to get attorneys involved. And in almost every precinct, there will be attorneys available. But my recommendation is then to get with someone in your city. There's been for some time a national nonpartisan election protection coalition. They work all year round, and they've been incredibly helpful on election day for those that have issues. And you've probably heard it before. It's 866-OUR-VOTE. You can call 866-OUR-VOTE. And they provide a bunch of tools, a bunch of support. They are in every state across the country, and they help with documentation problems, with voter information, especially problems you encounter when voting, and working with partners on the ground, be they attorneys or in some cases even journalists. But election protection focuses on the voter, not the politicians, not the parties. They provide guidance and information to help any person, regardless of who you're voting for, make sure that you're able to cast your vote. And so that's 866-OUR-VOTE. And the challenge, Rick, is I think sometimes people get to the polls and they're told something and they don't think they have any recourse. So say you moved and you didn't change your registration. In some cases, you may go to the wrong polling location. You have two options at that point. If you have time, you can travel to the right polling location and don't worry about casting a provisional ballot. Or if for whatever reason you can't get to that right polling station, you can cast a provisional ballot. There should never be a reason that you are not able to cast your vote if you are a registered voter and you know you have registered to vote. Now, Kay will tell you, and many of us know, that there are states that purge voter rolls. And sometimes we get caught up in the purge. And so there may have been a purge of voters from the voter roll, which means you got knocked off the roll for whatever reason, and they don't even see you as registered. If you know you have registered to vote previously, again, ask for a provisional ballot. Do not let anybody tell you you cannot vote on Election Day if you have actually registered to vote. Now, they will check this and then ultimately count your vote later. But it's incredibly important. And if you're confused at all, call 866-OUR-VOTE. That is 866-OUR-VOTE. But there is no circumstance where you should let somebody tell you you cannot vote on Election Day if you know you have been registered to vote. As long as you're in the right state. Now, if you know you registered in another state and you're in the wrong state trying to vote, that's your fault. But if you know that you are in the state that you registered to vote, and there may be an issue with the polling location, your address, then ensure that you ask for a provisional ballot. I cannot say it enough. And it's 866-OUR-VOTE. If you think anything wrong is happening, I'm going to tell you this. If you are told you can't vote, somebody checks something and then finds out that you can, you should report that too. We need to make sure that we are reporting where people are being either intimidated or giving misinformation. And I'll tell you, I don't think that happens that often. But if it does happen, that is another reason to be able to call 866-OUR-VOTE, because you want to be able to report that if you felt intimidated, if you felt discouraged, if someone wasn't helpful in offering you a provisional ballot, those are the things that they need to know too, because the poll watchers, who are also part of this process, can report that, and they will be collecting data on where were there places that there seemed to be a pattern of making it difficult for people to vote. So I really appreciate Rick for the additional time, because that 1-866-OUR-VOTE is not just about are you registered and turning out. It really is about on Election Day, do you feel protected? Was your right to vote encouraged, or was your right to vote discouraged? And if it was, get people involved that can support you in the process in real time, as well as post-process, and making sure we collect data to know where people were turned away or where they had problems.